Good afternoon. This is Rabbi Cat from Beit Tikkun, the Synagogue Without Walls. And I'm here with you to share some reflections and musings on this week's Parsha. And I'm going to do something different this week, not what I normally do. What I normally do is pick up a section of the Parsha maybe and highlight that. But there's a lot of different themes and ideas running through this Parsha, and I really want to touch upon a few different things. So it starts with the lighting of the menorah by Aaron. The Parsha starts with that. And one of the things one of the themes that's in this Parsha is this model of leadership. And you can almost hear in this Parsha the tension that we talk about a lot between power over and power with. And that's a theme in this Parsha that I will tease out. And then there's also another aspect in this Parsha of this yearning to be seen. And that's where I'm going to start right now, because the beginning of this Parsha speaks about the fact that Aaron, a Levite, is called to light the menorah in the new tabernacle. So the Levites are the ones who are going to light the menorah in this new tabernacle. The tabernacle, or the Mishkan, is a holy space where God, the divine, dwells with the people as they move, and it gets taken down and rebuilt. And in previous weeks, we talked about the different roles that the different tribes have for the caring of the community and the caring of the tabernacle. And Rashi talks about the fact that Aaron feels kind of chagrined and upset because he's not given, his Levite tribe isn't given a special role, because the Levites are really the container, the people that watch over the Mishkan. So they do have a special role, but he wasn't given any unique task. And so Rashi says that Aaron was upset about this. And so they give Aaron this role of lighting the menorah. So this brings me to the issue of being seen. So even Aaron, the brother of Moses and Miriam, who plays a significant role throughout Exodus and throughout the whole rest of the Torah, right? He's the voice of Moses. When Moses talks about not being able to speak, God says, I'll put the words in Aaron, your brother, and he'll speak for you. Still, Aaron is not feeling seen, is not feeling recognized. And so, I share that to say that all of us have a need to be seen, to be acknowledged, valued, and appreciated. Even Aaron, even Moses, and even Miriam. And we'll hear more about that in this Parsha, actually. And so we can just recognize that that's part of the human quality. It starts way back in the story of Genesis with Cain and Abel, and God recognizes the gifts offering that Abel brings and ignores Cain's, and Cain ends up being so hurt and so distraught that he kills his brother. So I think it's maybe my reminder to myself and to all of us that, we're tender beings. We all have a lot of trauma and harm and hurt that we carry within us, and we all yearn to be seen. And the more that we can build homes and lives and communities that allow us to really see each other, the more welcoming our world will be. And that's a good thing. So later in this Parsha, I'm going to jump ahead. Aaron and Miriam are heard talking negatively about Moses's wife, a Cushite woman. And there's a whole discussion about what that's all about. But one of the things that's understood that this is about is that a Cushite woman is a darker skinned woman, an African woman. And so there's some teachings and beliefs that they're really speaking in a racist way about Moses. And they say, well, what's so great about Moses? God speaks to us too. So here's another thing of them wanting to be seen. God speaks to us. We're so great too. And God gets really angry. And God says, no, I speak face to face, mouth to mouth with Moses, pay, mouth to mouth. In other prophets and other people, I come to them in their dreams. So Moses is more special. And then God strikes Miriam with leprosy. Now, there's also a feminist critique of this, which is that Miriam and Aaron are speaking negatively about Moses, but only Miriam gets stricken with leprosy. And so then sometimes you hear the commentators talk about the fact that it was Miriam who spoke negatively, but the Torah says they both were speaking with each other negatively. And then Aaron begs Moses to pray for Miriam's healing. And Moses offers this prayer, El Na Rafanala. Please, God, please heal her. And commentators debate about if Moses's prayer for her healing is genuine, and so the na, which is a non-translatable word that is often translated as please, like, please God, please heal her, if that's a genuine call for healing for her, or if it's perfunctory and he's just saying, yeah, please God, heal her, because he doesn't even mention her name, and Moses is so angry and shocked at the way his siblings are speaking negatively about him. So again, there's Moses and Aaron are wanting to be recognized and seen as important and valuable and having a special connection with the divine. And so that's another element, again, the same theme of being seen. So another theme in this Parsha is, well, actually, before I talk about that, let me jump back for a moment. So then it talks about the Pesach offering, this Parsha. And it says in it, and this is in Numbers 9:14, it says that the stranger that resides with you also should offer a Pesach offering in accordance with the rules and rituals of the Passover sacrifice. So they're supposed to follow the same rules and rituals. And then it says, there shall be one law for you, whether stranger or citizen of the country. So it doesn't matter if you're a stranger or a citizen, one law shall apply in the land. And this brings me to what's happening and what's historically happened actually in Israel and Palestine, which is that in Israel and in the West Bank and Gaza, there is not one law. There are two laws. Palestinians in the West Bank are subject to military rule, and Israelis are subject to civil courts and civil rule. And this has dramatic impacts on people's lives because in the military court system, there is no presumption even of innocence. There's no timeline of due process, and something like 99% conviction rate. And in civilian and criminal court system in the state of Israel, obviously there's all sorts of due process rights and other rights that adhere to people being charged in that system. And we also know that there is not one law in the whole of Israel for Palestinians and Israelis. And so this is another reason why I say that Israel is a land with a lot of Jews, but it's not a Jewish state. Because a Jewish state, among other things, would have one law for all of its people that live in the state, citizens or strangers in the land, and Israel does not. And there's many other aspects of Judaism that would apply if this was a Jewish state. And so it's not a Jewish state. It's really important that we say it's not a Jewish state, because when the nation state of Israel's actions get equated with Judaism, that gives rise to more anti-Semitism, because people think it's Jews doing this. While it is Jewish leaders doing this, they're not doing it as Jewish leaders. They're doing it as people with power in a nation state enacting their power on other people. And that happens all around the world. It happens here in the United States, happens everywhere. And so Israel, I want to emphasize, is a state with a lot of Jews, but it is not a Jewish state. Then we learn in this Parsha that God descends on the people and creates a cloud. And when the cloud is lifted, then the people can travel. And God's still with them, but the people can travel. But when the cloud descends, the people can't travel. And I was thinking about what we can take from this. And to me, it tells us something about slowing down. When things are cloudy, when we don't see clearly, then maybe it's time for us to sit still, to be reflective, to think, maybe to build community and connections. And then when the cloud lifts and we can see more clearly, then we can take action. Then we can move. So that's another element of this Parsha. So another component of this theme in this Parsha that I'm going to explore right now is a model of leadership. And so there's different models of leadership, and I talk a lot about in the Torah these different voices that we hear, one of domination and power over, and one of interdependence and love and kindness and generosity. And we see that in this Parsha in terms of leadership. There's a model of leadership that's domination and power over, and then there's a model of leadership where we share power, where power is shared. And in this Parsha, the people are complaining, as they are wont to do in the desert quite a lot. There's no food, there's not enough food, it's just manna, it tastes terrible, it's the same food every day. When we were in Egypt, we had all this meat and fruit and all this yummy stuff. And Moses freaks out, gets very upset with the people. He doesn't know what to do, and he turns to God and says, he's so upset, he says to God, just kill me, I can't handle this anymore, there's too much pressure on me. And God actually gets upset with Moses. But God says, okay, you bring me 70 elders, and I'm going to put the word of God into them, and then they will help carry the burden with you. And the term, the 70 elders in this Parsha is the word for the men, it's all men, and elders is in the singular, ish. And there's another conversation about this back in Exodus, when Yitro, who is Moses' father-in-law, sees Moses meeting out, sitting and listening to people day in and day out, all day and all night, as they're lined up to come to him with their disputes. And Yitro says, what are you doing? You can't handle this all yourself. You're going to get burned out, and the people are going to get burned out. You need to create systems of justice and people to hear people's complaints. And so you need a whole bunch of people to do this for you. And the term for men in that Parsha, again, it's men, is anashe. It's in the plural, men. And so there's a question about, like, why is it anashe in Exodus, and why is it ish in this Parsha, plural and singular? And there's lots of different ways we can understand that. So I'm just going to tease those out a little bit. I think of the story of Exodus as a story of both personal and collective liberation. And often Exodus can be drawn on in a psycho-spiritual way as like, this is our personal story, how we get out of the Hasidim really like to look at the Torah this way. What is it about our psycho-spiritual lessons that we can draw from in our Torah? And so there's a teaching and conversations around the personal journeys and steps we need to take to achieve our personal liberation. And the Exodus is a story of collective liberation, right? The people left. And so I think that the reason it's anashe in Exodus is because what Yitro is trying to say is there's a community of people who can help you. And he's trying to diffuse power and spread power out and create a more egalitarian way of running a society. And that's the message of Yitro. And in this Parsha, God's the one telling Moses, I'm going to put this word of God into elders. And God puts it in the singular, or we could understand lots of different ways. We could say Moses is telling this story, and that's how Moses understood it, or the people who are writing the Torah at this time in this Parsha are understanding it. And that to me is more of a leadership of power over, because we're going to pick the 70 elders from the different tribes, and they're going to have the power, the word of God, to help hold the community with Moses. Now that's also shared power, right? Because Moses is now not going to hold it alone. He's going to hold the power, hold the care and the well-being of the community with these elders. But again, it's a particular select group of elite people. In Exodus, I love it. Yitro says, pick men who are in fear or awe, it's the same verb, same root in Hebrew, who are in fear or awe of the divine, of God, people who are trustworthy, and who will not spurn ill-gotten gain, which is really different from our model of leadership today, right? Like our leaders are greedy and selfish and constantly seeking ill-gotten gain. And in the Parsha and Numbers that we're reading this week, it doesn't give any of those warnings, any of those indications. Pick people who are in awe of God. Choose people who are not seeking ill-gotten gain. And so in Exodus, it's people leaving from an enslaved place on this journey to their liberation. Again, they're not liberated, they're still not liberated in Numbers, we're still not liberated today, but they're on this journey. And in Numbers, I've said before, it's a focus of trying to coalesce these people into, at this point, they're trying to look more like a nation state. And in nation states, particularly the nation state that Moses was raised in, right? His model is the model of Egypt, with Pharaoh as a leader, right? And then chieftain. So he comes from a model of nation state and leadership that is very heavy power over. And so in some ways he's reenacting that here. But Yitro has a different model because he doesn't come from Egypt, he comes from Midian, comes from shepherding communities that have a very different model potentially of what leadership looked like. And that's what he's trying to instill in Moses in Exodus. And it seems like Moses kind of forgot, because here we are in Numbers, and again, he's feeling the burden, he's holding it all himself. And God's saying, you don't have to hold it yourself. And when God puts the word of God into these 70 elders, two people, and their names are Eldad and lost their names, Eldad and Medad, continue prophesizing. They continue to speak what they're hearing or believing to be hearing from God. And Joshua, who now is going to take over after Moses dies, right? Joshua freaks out and says, they're prophesizing and they're speaking words that you're not speaking, and therefore they're going to gain more power and your power is going to be lost. And Joshua's all upset. And Moses says, don't worry, it's okay. They can prophesy. So here, Moses is softening about power. And what he says is really stunning. He says that he wishes that all of Yod-Heh-Vav-Eh's people were prophets and that God's spirits were upon all of them. So here Moses is saying, I wish more people were prophetic. I wish more people were challenging the people and speaking truth and hearing the word of God for us to create a loving and just world. And so I'm going to end with that. And what I'm going to say is that I like to think of what the prophets did as holy rebuke. And there's lots of different elements that they engaged in that I'll speak to at another time. But some of those elements were both, right, challenging the people and rebuking them, and also having compassion and empathy and being with them in their pain and sorrow and grieving. And what I want to say is that we are in very, very hard times right now. And I too wish that the Israelite people and all peoples had more people who were prophetic in their speech, who could speak with courage and clarity and audacity about the needs and the horrors and the reality of what's happening in these times, and could also hold compassion and could grieve and mourn, because we need people to do all of that. We need to stand up and speak courageously, and we also need to grieve and mourn and have compassion. So that was a lot. I just was a lot in this parsha I wanted to touch upon. We will meet as a community next Shabbat, next Saturday. Oh, actually, I apologize. We will not be meeting next Saturday. We'll be meeting the first Shabbat of July. And so I welcome you to join us in person. I'd love to have you join us in person in Emeryville or online. All the information for how to participate in our services and join us is going to be in the link below. So have a look and sign up and join us. And please share this with others and invite them to join us as well. I wish for you a enriching, meaningful Shabbat. One of the other things the prophets do is they provide a vision of the world we want, a vision of love and kindness, caring for the stranger and the most vulnerable amongst us. And Shabbat is a time for us to sink into envisioning that possibility and then committing in the coming week after Shabbat to take those actions. So may your Shabbat be filled with being seen and being acknowledged, with exploring for yourself the ways in which you share power and the ways in which you might engage in domination and power over, and seeing if there's ways to soften around that, and to find the courage to speak prophetic truths, to grieve, and to envision the world yet to be that we all deserve and so yearn for. I wish you a wonderful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.